Welcome everybody to Horror Chata. It is me, David, aka CaliDTO.
And Jess, of course.
We have a wonderful film for you this week. We have The Exorcist,
Classic.
1973. Yeah, this is a super dope movie. However, there is some things to talk about. So let's get the ball rolling. It starts off with a mom and daughter. The mom is an actress. The daughter
Sorry,
is
I want to
just
cut you off. Before we even get to that, I think we should talk about how it's based on a book written by William William Blatty, and William Friedkin is the one who directed this film. So I just
yeah.
want to give a little bit of background information. Um I think that it's kind of funny that both of their names are William, so it's kind of hard to keep track of my Williams.
Oh, Bill.
Yeah. But William Blatty actually suggested that Friedkin, I'm gonna call him by their last names because it's a little bit easier, but Friedkin direct the movie. So he has his like stamp of approval. Hey dude, you wanna like direct my movie? Sure. And the cool thing is that Blatty's actually one of the producers of the film.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, so I
Well, that's
just
how it should be because if it's your work, you should be able to like have some kind of say in it, right? I mean, so if things
absolutely.
get changed, like if I'm a writer and like I sell the rights to my stuff, like I would want to be on set and be like, yo, like I don't want you to like change the ending or whatever, like you know.
I feel like I agree, but oftentimes that doesn't happen. I feel like sometimes
Yeah.
authors just sell their rights and like let whoever do whatever what they want with their story, and they often butcher it.
Yep.
Unfortunately, as we see in a lot of sorry Stephen King, I love you Stephen King, but in a lot of
Hmm.
Stephen King movies. Um, but yeah, no, I think it's pretty cool that he was a producer, and I also quickly wanted to add that Blatty's novel is based on a real life 1949 exorcism of a young boy named by the pseudonym Roland Doe. I don't know what his real name, but that's the
It says
pseudonym.
Roland Rowe,
Okay, so I have
ROE. Yeah.
really I have yeah, you
Yeah.
see I got this from Mental Floss, and I have feel like I've also watched different videos even saying that the person was a girl. So I have so many contradicting or like
It says 13-year-old boy, and how it turned out was that he was playing with the Ouija board and he started
interesting.
showing demonic possession signs.
Interesting. Yeah, I've heard a lot of like different stories. I'm gonna go with yours because I trust you. And but the story became national news and it caught the interest of Blatty, the person who wrote the book. And yeah, I just thought that was interesting. I got that from Mental Floss, so I'm interested in where you got your information because I've heard
Random site.
yeah. I tried to vet not really. I didn't try to vet any. I've heard conflicting things, so that's kind of
Yeah.
interesting that we both got different information, even if it is by like one letter off. I
Well, I'm gonna quickly give like a super fast rundown of like what supposedly actually happened.
I want to know. We want to
Yeah,
know.
so
People want to know.
it's a 13-year-old boy. He was playing the Ouija board. He started showing signs of demonic possession. There was an attempt to get rid of to exorcise the demon out of the body by Roman Catholic priest Edward Hughes at Georgetown University. Unsuccessful. He was actually harmed, as the boy is said to have broken free from the restraints and slashed the priest using a smasher spring. Then we have Reverend William S. Bodern in St. Louis. He was the second person to attempt it. Um, so it says that there was about 30 exorcisms done to this boy.
Yes.
So he kept breaking free from his
Pun
restraints.
intended. Sorry, no pun intended. By the
Yeah,
way,
yeah.
that's dark.
So apparently it finally worked after a while, and he has no recollection of it since.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So, you brought up Georgetown University. That information is a little contradictory to what I have because Blatty actually attended Georgetown University, and I forgot where the event, The Exorcist, took place, but the movie itself took place in I don't know if, like somewhere else. I don't know. I think I'm getting a little confused. I feel like I'm getting different information from different outlets, like not just from you, but in general. So it's
Yeah.
kind of hard to pin down exactly where. But I think our general I like summary is like there. It was inspired by a book, and now we have this director, and the writer's producer. So that's kind of cool. It's not cool that we are getting different information, but yeah,
So another
interesting.
another quick fact about the book before it was turned into a film, it actually flopped when it came out, and then supposedly the author was invited to the Dick Cavett show, and he became some guy named Dick Cavett. Cavett. He had some kind of like, I don't know if it was a talk show or it doesn't really say. But after the appearance, he got it hit the New York Times bestseller,
That's crazy.
and he also wrote the screenplay as well. Well, like he said, the producer, so he
Mhm.
basically helped develop the film as well.
Yeah, that's all interesting stuff.
Yeah,
That's weird though. Like I feel like this whole film is predicated on like weird shit going on set and like weird things happening to the actors, the producers. Um, there's
I
a
feel
lot
like
of
I feel like in most like religious films, like it just happens that way, because apparently it happened to the in the Omen as well. There was a bunch of like on set,
love that movie. I
like
need to rewatch that movie.
I,
Um,
I I don't even know if I've ever watched it before. I
I
need to watch it
watched
though.
it just like with this film. I watched it when I was way too young. I was definitely what do they call it? Latchkey kid, unsupervised, up to my own things. So I ended up that's why I love horror movies so much.
Yeah.
I ended up watching them on my like with older cousins. My parents didn't have a clue that I was doing this, and I'm still a little bit traumatized by a lot of them. But yeah, no, there's a lot of weird shit that goes on. I agree. I not just on religious. Well, maybe I don't know. I could think of the poltergeist. I don't know. There's a lot of weird shit that happened in that film.
Yeah.
Um,
Maybe I guess just paranormal in general.
yes, just
Yeah.
yeah. I think it's
And
a
and I'm like, everybody knows I'm a pretty big believer in like paranormal and spiritual stuff.
so am I, by
Um,
the way.
yeah,
But I feel like as I get less religious, I believe less in it. I think when I was young when I watched this film, so I think I was more scared watching it when I was younger. Also, because when you're younger, you're more susceptible to
yeah.
getting scared, I suppose. But as an adult, I was less scared. But there's still some moments where it definitely sent like chills down my spine. Yeah,
Well, like with me, it wasn't even religious. Like it was more of like because I grew up in a haunted house, so it was
yeah.
like I didn't have a choice.
I feel like you still need to tell us that story because you say that you told it like a million times on your main podcast, but as listeners of this podcast, they've never heard that story. So a lot of people just are like, "What are you talking about?"
How about I give the cliff notes at the end of the film review?
If we recall, if we remember, sure, I would love that.
Yeah.
Yes.
Um. Yeah. So again, we have the film Exorcist. Um. We kind of gave a rundown of the book, so the film itself will be reviewed, um, in a sort of not fast way, but like we're not going to tell you guys the entire thing, but we'll give you guys like the cliff notes of scene to scene, not scene to scene, but
Okay.
like important stuff.
AKA, we summarize movies too much. So now we're
Yeah.
gonna try to not summarize as much and give you the scenes that we found the most interesting. So
Well,
yeah.
here's a thing that I felt was kind of okay. So one, so we have the priest Merritt in the beginning of the film. He's in Iraq. So here's one thing that kind of so he's on a scavenging or he's on an expedition for like finding artifacts and stuff at certain village empty villages and stuff. Um, and he finds a sort of like a demonic statue. And that's kind of like what leads you into like the rest of the film of like what he's doing around the world and what kind of like the things he's set to do.
Mhm.
And then he like sees an actual like giant statue of this demonic presence, which is called Pazuzu, I think.
Yeah,
Um,
that's kind of what I gathered.
yeah, Pazuzu. So here was a weird thing about the opening film, the beginning of the film. So he's in Iraq, and I felt it was weird that they kind of like made the Iraqi people look weird. They made him look like I don't know if it,
Stereotypical.
I don't know if it was like on purpose or like it was just like because they're in a different country, but it made them look like sort of like creepy and like off put in a way. There was like this weird like scenes where I was like, why are they like filming these people like in a weird way? I don't know. I thought like I was kind of like weirded out by that.
So
Um,
yeah, I think I know what you're saying. It was a kind of off-putting seeing like people from a different country depicted in like an American film. Like it didn't
yeah,
feel like authentic or genuine. It felt like fake.
it was
And
almost like filler stuff that they didn't need to put in there. You know,
yeah,
um, I was like, are they? What are they trying to tell us here? Like, I don't understand. Uh, yeah. So anyway, he's sent there to like excavate these places, or actually his entire team is. I guess the church like sends out and hires like people from the country to dig and find stuff. So then he finds.
you like an archaeologist, I guess.
Yeah, he's an archaeologist, but he's also a
A
priest,
priest,
like a high priest. Not a high priest, but he's like up there.
experienced.
Yeah, very experienced. And then we go back to the United States with Reverend Damien, which is funny to have a name as Damien because that's supposed to be the son of the devil. So
I
I
wanted
thought
to
that.
name my cat that Damien, but I was like, oh, maybe that's a little too on brand. So
Well, it's weird because like they kind of like hint like so like Damien is a priest and he's losing faith because his mom's in the hospital, and things like that, and then she uh, ultimately dies. But he's like totally losing his faith in the church, and I just thought that was kind of a fun, not a funny thing, but like a interesting thing that they would kind of blend that into the film.
I think it's
Just,
humanistic. Like it kind of brings into question people who are probably questioning their own religion. Like, is religion real or is it like a farce? Um,
yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I think that's kind of interesting that they would make a priest question his own um religion, really.
Well, I mean, because he lives a hard life. I mean, he's a priest. Like he works at the college as he's a therapist or a psychologist.
Yeah, he's a
Yeah.
psychologist.
Um, so he has to deal with like a ton of stuff, and then also to be doing his work, every day at the church, etc. It's hard. He's a boxer too, apparently,
Yes.
uh, and he takes care of his mom when he can, but like it's obviously not as often because he's always busy and broke, so he can't just like commute, everywhere. So
Yeah.
um, there's all that stuff. So he's got a lot of burden on him.
I feel like it's
Just
yeah, like I said, like a very humanistic like approach to I don't know, like whatever the human psyche is going through. Like it's just a very normal thing. Like I feel like a lot of people go through a lot of tough stuff and they might be religious or they might not be, but the fact that a priest is going through this, it kind of makes you like wonder like, oh, if he's feeling this way, maybe it's okay for me to feel this way and ask like this well, because I grew up Catholic, I think I'm projecting a little bit, but when I was in like the deep like trenches of Catholicism, I would always wonder, not always, but sometimes wonder like, is God real? And I think
well, I
it's
think we all kind of crossed that road at some point.
yeah, but I think it's kind of hard to ask yourself that question when you're really religious. It's almost
Yeah.
like you're doing a bad thing. And I think, well, I feel like throughout this film, we kind of see him bringing mental health into the equation more so than his religious background. Because I feel like ultimately he was more of a psychiatrist or psychologist more than he was a priest until later on.
Well, yeah. Remember, he does say that he did go through school to be a doctor,
Yeah.
and then he kind of like went the church route instead. So that's why he is a psychologist because he has experience in the medical field, and that's why he'll never like sort of like say that this person needs to be exercised at first because there are rules, and he believes more into like the science
Mhm.
part of it rather than just being like, oh, the devil's inside this person. Like we need to hurry up and I need to contact the church and etc.
Yeah.
So so that's the interesting character of Damien, and then we have the mom. I forget her name, but
Honestly, I don't remember her name, but she's like an actress, like a famous
yeah,
actress in the movie.
in the movie she's a famous actress, and let's see. Her name is Chris McNeil, apparently. And her daughter is Reagan. She's a 12-year-old girl. Super normal. They have a really loving relationship. The mom loves the daughter to death. They have great like chemistry, all throughout the film until Reagan is possessed. But did you notice like as soon as like the dad kind of like ignored them after she's calling her a bunch of stuff, and then the mom's or the so Reagan sees the mom like in distress, and she overhears a couple things. That's when like the I guess that's when Pazuzu starts to possess her because like she's like under a lot of stress. The daughter is, so she's like in a weakened state, and I think that's part of the reason why Pazuzu is able to possess her so fast.
Yeah, I think it's interesting that you brought up the fact that Reagan and her mom had a really close knit relationship because they did like a whole montage in the movie of them playing games and doing all these fun things. Coincidentally, Reagan really using the Ouija board, and I think that's ultimately what summoned the demon.
Did she use a Ouija? Oh shit, my bad.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I forgot they mentioned that. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So of course, like that's like because supposedly the Ouija board opens a gate or like a tunnel to like the other world.
Supposedly, sir. I don't know if that's supposedly okay. That could be true. I played the Ouija board in a donut shop and I got kicked out once. And ever since then, I'm like, maybe this shit's real. I don't know.
So I went on this tour in Vegas, and the story goes that like in the 70s, Satanists used to go into the basement and use the Ouija board and do like a bunch of rituals and stuff like in the basement, and that's why that place is like now possessed or like haunted because all these like spirits have like what came through the portals.
That's spooky.
Yeah. So I don't know if I believe in the Ouija. I have never tried it. I want to try it myself.
I kind of do. I was very young when I played it. Man, I was up to some no good. I was very young. I was also unsupervised. That's probably why.
Yeah.
But yeah, I
do want to try it though.
I don't think anybody should. I think that thing like fucks you up. Like personally, like when I got kicked out of that donut shop, we still try to continue playing it in some alleyway. We were in East Los Angeles, by the way, and one of the tunnels. If you know a tunnel from East LA, shout out to you because that's scary. But we were playing it, and weird shit kept happening. Maybe that was just my preteen like brain thinking weird stuff's happening. But when I think of that, I think of it as like some creepy stuff going on. Like I feel like we were constantly getting kicked out. Even like people would walk by us and be like, "What the fuck are you doing?" And then we had to just like stop playing. Like, but I don't know. Maybe that's contradictory because I feel like if some demons were to be summoned, maybe they'd want us to keep playing. But I don't know. We kept getting interrupted. That was the weird thing that I got out of it. Just saying. Yeah.
Well, man, that's a good. Maybe that's a sign, like.
Like yeah, exactly. Maybe it was a sign. Like don't play it. Like
yeah. Like you stop it right now.
How spooky.
So supposedly that's what happens when you do the Ouija thing is like it opens a portal to the other world, and that's why spirits go through. Sometimes demons too. So
yeah, that was the catalyst of the movie. Really, that's how.
Well, if you think about it, like so Pazuzu goes through, but also you can tell that like there's another alternative to Pazuzu. So I mean, like not a alternative, but like another like it's there because it knows something, and it wants to do something. So it does eventually, but we'll talk about that in a bit.
Okay.
So the daughter gets possessed early on, or slowly, and the mom takes the daughter to the hospital, does a series of tests, crazy tests. Like I kind of cringed when I watched some of these procedures. I was like, just to get like brain scans and stuff.
Oh my god, the technology back then, I can't even imagine.
But you can tell like she spent a crap ton of money just like
she's rich though, she's a famous actress.
So she was able to do that. Any poor person would have been like, nope,
But quickly to go back a little bit before she even got like prodded and everything, the reason why her mom thought there was something wrong with her was because her mom threw like a swanky party with all her Hollywood friends. And in the middle of the night, while they were like all playing piano and singing, having a good old time, Reagan comes out of her room and she starts like saying shit, like
Urinating.
weird shit. And then she pisses herself right on the carpet in front of everybody. That scene already, oh my God, I was like, what the fuck is going on? Like, this movie, guys, came out in 1973. I feel like to be so bold during that time, that takes a lot of balls. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah, that
Yeah.
was pretty ballsy. And very strange. Even so, the other priest was there too as well, right? I think that's what the we find that out eventually. So let's see. All the procedures are done. She continues to get sick. Um, Mom doesn't know what to do, so she finally, like all the leading like psychiatrists and everybody, they're like, we don't know what to do. Like nothing shows up on the scans. Like she's totally fine. They thought it was like something to do with her frontal lobe, but like turns out negative. Um, and they're like, well, so and then she also attacks one of the psychiatrists as well, which I thought it was pretty funny. Um, and so they were like, okay, like, have you thought about getting a priest? Because in some cultures, possession happens, and supposedly like we don't believe in this stuff, but like it works sometimes.
Like the power of suggestion is what they talk
Yeah,
about too, really. It's not that they believe in it, but they believe that the person believes in it, so therefore maybe there's a supposed demon that could be extracted through the process, but it doesn't mean that there's an actual demon, if that makes sense. They
yeah.
use all this kind of jargon, which I'm like a little confused about, but I
I
think
mean,
I
it
know.
makes sense though, because like the mind is a powerful thing. So if you believe in something, like it's hard
Absolutely.
to reverse it unless like that person
Mhm.
is willing to accept it. And that's why there's like a thing like the placebo effect when you give somebody a sugar pill, and they think they started to get healed because they are convincing themselves that they're taking something that's supposed to heal them.
Yeah.
So they eventually become normal again. But we
I
see
feel like
that like
mhm.
yeah. Sorry, go ahead. I was pretty much done.
I was gonna say I feel like the film does a great job of making us believe that maybe this is a well, as a viewer, you think that it's a demon, right?
Yeah.
But it also makes you question, like, is this like a mental illness? Because during that time, I'm sure a lot of people, well, I think there's a reference made that 16th century is where they performed a lot of exorcisms,
Mhm.
and like during this century is where you actually know that mental illness is a possibility. But this is still the 70s, so I feel like a lot of people could be swayed either way. Is it a
Yeah.
mental illness or is it an exorcism? I mean, there
Well,
wasn't
that's what I thought too,
God.
because I was like, well, like technology's still pretty young. I mean, look how long it took them to get an MRI,
Yeah,
like all the
that
stuff they had to do just to get an MRI.
honestly, I
So
kind of love that. It's like some kind of like if you're afraid of going to the doctors or even the dentist, like I feel like it does a great job of like kind of like scaring you a little.
yeah, I
Like
was like, I do not want to get that done, but
I
luckily we
hate
don't have to
all
do stuff like that.
that.
Yeah,
I mean, for me, it's hard to go to the doctors or the dentist because like that shit scares me. Like, there's a real fear of people going to the doctors. It's like seeing all those machines, but this time's 100. It's like I said, reiterating, it's the 70s, so
well, and to also parallel just with the daughter, like priest Damien, his mom is also sick, but she has like more of like a Alzheimer's or like a maybe schizophrenia, but like she
mhm.
gets really sick and she starts to like hallucinate and also like towards the end of before she dies she's like yelling in the at the TV and or the radio. I mean, she's like doing stuff like that too, but then she actually does die.
Mhm.
So
I feel like Damien's background is it's kind of sad
yeah.
because like there's this scene where this movie takes a long time in shooting, like him going to the apartment, and at first I'm thinking like, oh, he's going to his dingy little apartment wherever the hell he's located, and you can see on the outskirts that it's like poverty stricken. And I think that's first it's his apartment, but then as he goes in all the way, you can tell it's his mother's place, and she's living like in squalor basically. And he really cares about his mother, like that's a big person, like that's a big figure in his life. And later on, we find out that she's admitted to a mental hospital, not by his accord, but by his brother, his older
Brother, yeah,
brother,
the uncle.
that forcefully admits her into a mental health institution. But back then, like we said, it's back in the day, so they didn't really have a handle on mental illness. It was definitely unjust, and like a lot of really fucked up stuff happened in mental hospitals. So I think it's also commentary on that. And
Well, yeah, all they did was like put her like they injected her to put her to sleep, and then they tied her up. Like that's all they really did.
yeah,
But
that
she's
was
laying
like,
in bed. She's like, and that's why when he's like walking to see his mom, like all the other women, like they started like bombarding him. They're like, "Take me with you, take me with you." You know,
yes, that like made me so sad. I
I
was
was
like,
like, "Damn," because they don't. This is 73, like or 72, like if they're filming it.
mhm.
Like there's no like research really on like most of this stuff. Like they're all just kind of like barely researching now then, of like
They're
what's going on with each
enlightened.
individual case. So
Hmm.
they don't know what's going on with most of these people, and so the people are all, they're just like, well, just throw them in the room,
Yeah,
like see what happens,
that's the extent of it.
Yeah.
And like later on, his mom like tragically dies, and he feels guilty about this the entire film because he wanted to leave the priesthood to take care of his mom, and he's convinced to do otherwise. He's
Hmm.
convinced to stay in the priesthood to do good things for the people, but at the same time, he's losing his mother, and like he feels guilty, like he could have done something to save her. I don't know if he could have, but
Nah, I think
I
it was more of like he wanted to be there,
don't.
the
Mhm.
last like you know
Moments.
weeks, because it happened pretty quick after.
It did happen pretty quick. And I also like want to point out the Catholic guilt is a very real thing. I've experienced it and up until like recently, really. I still get like pangs of like feeling guilty about things that I do that go against my old religious beliefs. So I can only imagine him as a actual priest that feels a certain way. And I'm not trying to talk badly about people who are religious. I mean, you're entitled to your own beliefs, but
Yeah.
I feel like I grew up definitely super heavily religious, and I see like some of the feelings that he feels, not to the same extent, but I understand exactly what he feels. So it's a commentary not just on mental illness, but on religion itself. Who are we to question religion,
Yeah.
especially if you're religious? That's a lot.
Um. So so Reagan is just like going spiraling down, and you can definitely tell like they really like hammer into your brain that like it's probably just mental health, or like some kind of psychotic break or some kind of condition that she's in, and that is more of like psychological thing, and they couldn't find scans, so that's why they go, and so they're proven wrong, and so like so finally priest Damien comes to visit her, but before that Reagan starts to like be very violent towards like her mom and like like the people around her. She's starting to like really slip, and so finally after a couple of like scenes of her just kind of wigging out, she finally contacts priest Damien and is like, my daughter is like losing her shit. Can you like, I think she's possessed. Can you look at her? And he's like, he doesn't want to because like he doesn't feel like it's, well, and he's never done it before, and so he's like, there's like guidelines. I gotta like be sure take her to the shrink first. And she's like, I've already done that. I've already taken her to like the best help that I can afford. Like which is a lot. She's loaded, so she can.
That's another thing too. Like, oh wow, like how lucky are you to even have all these resources to take your daughter to the best doctors
Right.
in the world? I mean, us, like, I mean, speaking for myself, I'd be screwed, and I
Oh
am
yeah,
screwed on a daily
yeah,
basis. I have so many mental health issues that I need help with that I still haven't been able to get help with because the whole system is rigged against us, unfortunately.
yep.
Yeah, I
So
have,
imagine any one of us that like grew up poor, like we're gonna die, like in that kind of
yes. And
situation.
actually, that reminds me of this new this is really sad. It happened in San Jose, which is local, and I think that's why a lot of people here are buzzing about it, not in a good way, but in a bad way.
Mm.
But I'm going to just read you a quick little headline from the New York Times. A New York article titled "Relatives Charged in Exorcism Death of a 3-Year-Old Girl. The Child Died from Asphyxiation at a Pentecostal Church in San Jose, California, as her mother, uncle, and grandfather tried to expel what they believed was an evil spirit," the authorities said. So I don't. Did you hear about this case, by the way?
No.
This is so sad. A 3-year-old girl, on a night, her mom like thought that like, oh, this little girl, like she's not going to sleep, like she's screaming, like there must be something wrong with her. Let me take her to the church where her relatives worked in the church and there were priests and stuff. And basically what they did is they tortured this little girl for about 21 hours. She hadn't
Wow.
eaten. She only had 6 ounces of water in her system. They kept trying to like um, basically get her to vomit, but she had nothing to give out anymore.
Yeah.
And they ended up asphyxiating her. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. But that just makes me really sad. Like, um, obviously, there was something mentally wrong with all these people. And the fact that they're that deep into their own religion, that this happened in
Yeah.
2021, last year. This is
Damn.
recent. And
Like, man, yeah, see, like, I feel like that's a problem. Like, if you're like, look, like me personally, I'm not like a religious person really, and I don't knock anybody for being religious, you know.
same, same.
But it's like we have we have the resources today. Like, if your child is getting sick, is like, showing like extreme signs, take him to the fucking emergency room. You
To an
know?
extent, though, to an extent, because I feel like these people, I don't know what the hell's going on with them. I
Well,
feel like
see,
they
but like
have the
I feel
mental
like
issues.
exactly that's what I was trying to get to.
Mhm.
Was like obviously like you're not in the right mind. Like if you have to, like in this extreme scenario, like if you feel like, yeah, you shouldn't even have a fucking child if like
Yeah,
you're gonna go that route instantly.
the
Like,
system is that fucked up.
yeah, like, dude, like, I
I
don't know,
mean,
man, get your head out of your ass and like,
seriously. I mean, think about what's happened recently, and I have to bring this up because it makes me uncomfortable to not mention it. But the mass shooting that just happened.
yeah,
I
I don't know
mean,
anything about it. I didn't read up on it yet, so
I it's important to read about it, but I also understand why people don't want to because it's too much to read. And
yeah,
but I think what I want to say is like don't make yourself numb to what's going on right now because 19 kids died. I don't know if I'm
that's a
getting
lot. Yeah,
I don't know if I'm
and
getting that number
one
right.
teacher, right?
No, two
Two
teachers.
teachers? Oh yeah.
And this it gets even worse. One of the teachers that passed away, the husband died of a heart attack a couple of days later.
Well, yeah, dude, like all that stress, like,
Could you
and like
imagine that pain?
agony, yeah, the agony of like,
Yes.
ugh.
I mean, he died of heartbreak, but also of like all the stress, right? And
Hmm.
I'm sorry to go off on a tangent, but I feel like we have to talk about it, at least touch on it a little bit. Like the mental health system in our country is so fucked up, and I'm tired of us feeling like we're numb to it. We shouldn't be numb to it. We have to read. We have to be aware of what's going on. We have to get angry, and we have to revolt ultimately because a lot of what's going on, it's just it's there's just no words. How can we keep funding these politicians that this is
Don't
a
give a shit. Yeah.
yeah, I'm going off on a tangent, but I feel like it's hard not to talk about this because when I keep reading
Well,
these
no, it's good
headlines,
because I mean, obviously they mentioned in the film, so it's like, it's important even today, even 40, almost 40 years later.
exactly, to
It's
talk
like,
about mental health.
or 50 years actually.
Mhm.
So
And a lot of these politicians will say, "Well, it's a mental health issue." It's not just a mental health issue; it's a gun issue, guys. I'm not
yeah,
against guns in all their capacity. What I'm saying is that there should be regulations.
yeah,
It should be difficult for people to access guns. The fact that this person was 18 years old, and I'm not going to say their name because they don't deserve to have their name shouted, and they
yeah,
should
yeah,
infamy. I don't care. How is it possible for someone to purchase a gun at 18 years old, an AR-15? That is fucked up. Our country is fucked up, and yeah, that's
yeah. That's it's man. There's so much to dissect there, but
yeah,
um,
yeah.
it's
Sorry.
it is it, no, no. It's good to mention that, like, we still need help today, with a lot of issues, but
Mhm.
no, you're right. I mean, it's important to talk about mental health and what we need to improve on.
I
Um,
feel like we do touch on mental health a lot on our podcast. So yeah,
folks, if you have, reach out,
please, if you feel, I don't know what to even say to a person that's in that much distress. I feel like the only thing we can do is plead to the people that are in power and go vote for single issues.
Mm-hmm.
If you see someone on the ballot that specifically meets your needs in the sense of wanting to regulate gun issues, I would say vote for that person, despite being a Democrat. Oh, I wouldn't. I don't know. I don't want to get. This is too much. I'm gonna make some people mad, so I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we will continue with the film, but
After all that, yes.
so Damien finally starts to visit Reagan, and he is kind of like he's trying to question the demon, you know, asking the demon simple questions, why are you here, blah blah blah, and so the demon's kind of messing with Damien a little bit, and so there's one point where Reagan is like sort of she's tied up to the bed and he starts to pour water on her or splash water at her. But he reveals to the mom that it wasn't holy water, it was just regular water, and she still reacted to it. So he was kind of like, well, I don't think it's possession because I didn't even use holy water, and she still like reacted to it in a way that you would react if it was holy water. So he kind of like was like, I don't think so, and then but then she gets progressively worse. You can see it in like pretty much every scene you see her in. She gets worse. Mm-hmm. You have anything to add on to that?
Well, I was just gonna say that at first I was confused because like I was believing everything, and I think I was like the priest in that situation. Well, actually, no, I wasn't like the priest. I was like a believer in that situation where I actually thought he was throwing holy water at her, and she was acting all kinds of crazy. But then what freaked me out the most is when she started speaking like his mother. But then he kept asking her like, "Oh, like, what's my mother's maiden name? If you're a demon or if you're whoever you say you are, what's my mother's maiden name?" And the Reagan never gave that answer. All she did was throw up on him.
I laughed about that too.
That was an iconic scene tw, by the way.
Well, it's gross. Like that slime that they used was like really gross.
It was pea soup, by the way. Pea
soup. It was? Okay.
Mm-hmm. I think they did like different tastings too. Like I think it was a couple really. But they ended up with that formula of pea soup, and yeah, that's what she threw up on him. And it reminds me of that. I don't know if you watch Family Guy, but I feel like a lot of older people do.
Yeah.
I'm old. I'm counting myself in. I'm not calling you old, okay? Older millennial. No, I'm a younger millennial, middle millennial, whatever. Let's not talk about that. But that scene in Family Guy where everybody starts throwing up, it's so old.
Yeah, it's like the first season or two.
Yes, like Stewie barfs and then like Brian barfs and then like Meg, like all of them are just barfing in one scene.
Yeah,
so disgusting.
They drink that stuff, right? What is it called?
I forget.
I forgot what it's called, but they drink like this like stuff. And they're like, "Oh, this doesn't work." And they're like, "No!" Like all over the place.
That's what it reminded me of, and I feel like probably Family Guy was inspired, obviously, from The Exorcist. But that's the entire time what I was thinking of. Yeah, that's basically what I wanted to add.
Also, for another shout out for another film because they obviously like were inspired by this one, but like when she starts to get possessed, they make fun of her on Scary Movie 2.
I love that movie. Oh my god!
So they were like when they made fun of like certain things, I was like, oh, that's why they made fun of it because it's so funny. Like there were times where like when Reagan started to like curse at everybody, she's like, fuck me. I started cracking up.
I know it's hard not to detach yourself from Scary Movie 2, and if you know, you know. Man, I wish they could bring back Scary Movie, that franchise, because I think it's so funny, but they need to make it actually good, because I feel like the first four, I will give it to the first four, were so solid. They were so funny.
Nah, the first two were like...
The first two are iconic. For me, it's the first four, because I saw all of those, and I still think they hold up. Well, maybe not the third and fourth, but the first two, yes. They're hilarious. Yeah, that's funny that you brought that up. I think of a lot of references to those parody movies.
Yeah, I don't know. As soon as I saw that, I was like, oh, Scary Movie 2, and I was like cracking up. I'm like, oh my god, that's so good. But like so it's funny, not funny, but so like when she started to like change her voice and stuff, it reminded me of when I went to this tour in Vegas. I talk about it a lot, but
You need to go to
there,
Vegas. This is what it sounds like.
dude, like no, there's a tour called Zach Bagans, and he's a guy that's on Ghost Adventures, the show. He owns the property there, which is the same house that I told you about the rituals in the basement and stuff. And he owns like a bunch of like things from all around the world, possessed stuff, like serial killer stuff, like a bunch of stuff.
It kind of reminds me of The Conjuring. The people that own like yeah, I think.
Basically, he's like,
Mhm.
he's basically like that person. So he collects like so many things from all around, and it's super dope. You got to check it out. And there's a room, the exorcism room, where I think it might even be the boy. No, there was another possession in the 70s, and uh, so he has like the chair and like basically a replica of like the entire room, and then he has like the original audio of the boy being possessed. And
That's
there's
fucking
dude,
creepy.
yeah, yeah. So like when you hear like the boy, it's like it sounds just like the girl in the movie, but like a boy though. And I was like, oh shit, it got real, you know?
That no, yeah, that's creepy.
Yeah. So like when I heard that, I was like, dude, that's what it sounds like. It's crazy sounding. I don't know if it's real, like because like some of the stuff we tried to research after the tour, and like nothing came up. So I was like, I don't know if this is like 100% legit, but it was so interesting and fun to see a bunch of stuff. But yeah, man,
I mean,
it
even
was
think about our own research, how we're bringing conflicting things or
yeah,
I think I don't know. I think that kind of adds to the lore, though. Like some weird shit happened. Period. I don't know.
yeah. Um,
Oh, quickly, since you mentioned something about her voice, I wanted to talk about the person who voiced Reagan's voice. It was done by Mercedes McCambridge. That sounds so like British to me. I don't know if I'm right on that. But the interesting thing that I found out is that she prepared by chain smoking and drinking whiskey and consuming raw eggs. And I'm like, hey girl, that's
yeah.
me at 19 years old when my body can actually handle that. Except for the
Yeah,
raw eggs part, I think that's actually a little bit too much. But yeah,
that's gross. Yeah.
isn't that kind of interesting? Just chain smoking and whiskey and raw eggs. That'll give you that raspy.
Mm, yum yum.
Shout out Miley Cyrus.
Right. So uh Reagan's getting like really bad. And finally Damien's like, all right, I think I need to talk to the church, because like now I'm like starting to see like, she's I think she's actually possessed. So he talks to the head priest, I guess, of that chapter. And the guy's like, uh, does he show him evidence? I forget. Um,
I think even before we get to that scene, there's like I think he talks to multiple like fathers or something, and he shows them like tapes of Reagan speaking Italian, but it turns out that she's actually not speaking not Italian. What's that other one? The other language that's not Italian, but it's I can't think of it right now.
mm,
She's not speaking a foreign language, she's just speaking backwards.
yeah, yeah.
Um
So, but the interesting thing about that was like once he starts to play it back, he says Marin a couple times, which is the 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 priest from from Iraq, or that you see in the beginning of the film. Um,
oh,
yeah,
interesting.
so he says Marin a couple times.
I
So
didn't even
like,
catch that.
yeah, so Damien convinces the head priest to do the exorcism, but the head priest wants somebody that is already experienced with exorcisms to help assist Damien with the exorcism, because he's never done it before. So as we saw before, Pazuzu was like teach or is and so he keeps mentioning Marin. So that's why, and this is what I was trying to say earlier, was like, so the demon Marin, or the demon Pazuzu, already knew Marin was back into the United States after he had already possessed Reagan. So I think he was trying to. I think he said that so he can get Marin to the house to ultimately kill him.
Yeah.
So that's basically what happens. So they get Marin to agree to it. They find him, they locate him. He's already in the States. He's been in the States for a couple months. Then so instantly, after a bunch of scenes of like uh, all these crazy stuff. Oh, actually, and also another important scene is so the mom is working, and she leaves Reagan with is he the director or he's like some drunk guy? I forgot. He's the drunk guy from the party. Um, and Reagan actually murders him basically. She like apparently breaks his neck and like throws him out the window or something like that, or to that extent. And uh, so that's why the detective is like asking, priest Damien like all these questions, and like it's weird that like he thinks the church is involved, and all the stuff is happening. Um, and that's kind of why you see the detective like lingering around like half the film. Um, but he's not really like an intricate part of the plot line. He's just kind of like, well, I think this is what's going on, so I'm investigating. But it's we all see what's really happening, and behind the scenes. So as soon as Marin comes, he's like, we need to like exercise for now because I don't even want to ask questions. Let's just do it now. And that's when we see Reagan like really fly out the handles as far as like um, levitating the bed, shaking the bed a bunch of stuff. I mean, we kind of saw this shaking in the bed before, but this time she's like, levitating and stuff. So
That's pretty freaking rad how they were
which
able
is
to do
yeah, the
that.
practical effects was pretty dope.
This whole entire film, like especially those scenes in Reagan's room where cabinets are opening up, windows, the wind, how cold it is in that room. The fact that Reagan's head turns to like a 360. Well, it starts off with like
It's
a
like 180.
180
Oh, and then
exactly,
it is, yeah.
and then towards the end it does an entire 360. They apparently use a dummy for that, which I was like, that takes a lot of work and like a lot of effort, and kudos to them for even doing that. But I mean, nowadays, I feel like that's unheard of. They just CGI the
Yeah,
entire
right.
thing.
But it's pretty
Right?
cool though, like how they did it.
I think it's amazing, and the
Yeah.
fact that they added like the breath thing that came towards the end because they're like, oh, we have a dummy and she's turning her head over, but it looks unrealistic because the room is really cold, so she's supposed to be breathing cold air. So let's figure out a way how to do that, and then they do like
Yeah. See, the
within the
practical
same day.
effects are pretty cool. Like, that's why like I keep saying like I'm not a huge fan of like CGI stuff. Um, so like when I see like old stuff like this, I'm like, see, I like it. Just feels more authentic to me,
Mhm.
you know?
I feel like this film in particular, though, I was amazed by the practical effects throughout the entire film. I feel like this movie basically, and I know this is wrong. Obviously, I know this is wrong, but I'm just gonna say I feel like this movie invented practical effects because it definitely inspired a lot of knockoffs. And I don't know. I think it's
I
amazing.
think it raised the bar in a lot of senses.
It definitely did. I mean, this is one of
Yeah,
the films that actually got nominated. One of the first horror films to be nominated for an Oscars. I mean,
that's
that's
crazy.
incredible.
Yeah.
And this film too caused a lot of controversy during the time.
Well, I mean, it's because it's like the
Like
religious
religious
undertone and
stuff.
everything.
But people
Yeah,
are walking out of theaters, people are fainting, people are vomiting. The closest thing that I've come to this, which is recently, actually, because I've never experienced this in my life, and I could be wrong, but I watched the A24 film Men that just came out recently, and
Mhm.
it's a very messed up film. And
Well, it
it
is A24.
right, right. But I mean, just the title "Man" is like, what is that movie going to be? Is it going to be
Yeah,
a hating man? And I've heard like, on at least on Twitter, like, oh, people are walking out, and I was like, that's fucking bullshit. Like, people don't walk out of films these days. Not what is this, the 70s?
right.
But when I was watching it, a couple did walk out during the film, but I'm not sure if they walked out because they were disturbed or because they just felt like maybe this wasn't the film for them, but I guess that kind of counts. Maybe they
Yeah,
just needed a pee break. I don't know, but it was an older couple that walked out halfway through the movie and it still hadn't even gotten that fucked up yet. So I think it's very interesting when a movie is powerful enough to drive people out of the theaters. And I was waiting while I was watching Men, which a lot of people, it's a very divisive film. People either love it or hate it. I personally was
Well, I feel like
completely
most of those films are like that. Like A24 is kind of like you either like it or you don't. You know?
yes. I don't know. I'm like, dude, do you just like need to like understand film more? I'm sorry, I fucking sound so pretentious saying that, but men in particular, I understand why people hate it more
Yeah.
than Hereditary, more than like Midsummer, because I love those, and people hate those too, by the way, and which was what basically you're saying. But Men was I feel like the last 20 minutes really fucked me up. It was disgusting. And
Yeah.
it was also directed by a man, which a lot of people have issues with because it's a movie about like men, but also like the I don't even. It was uncomfies. That's all I'll say. But yeah, basically, The Exorcist. A lot of people were uncomfortable. People were getting arrested for selling tickets that were not supposed to be sold to people under 18. The actress herself, by the way, the lady who plays the mom, I saw on TikTok out of all places.
Oh shit.
I don't know if she said it on there, but like there was somebody uploaded a video of her saying like, oh, for the longest time I didn't want to take my son to watch this movie because it was rated R and it was so messed up and I didn't want to put my son through it. But finally on his 14th birthday I gave in and I finally said, okay, fine, it's your 14th birthday, I'm gonna allow you to see this movie. And then she says later on that her son was like, you know what, even at 14 I was still too young to watch that movie.
Oh shit.
So if that doesn't say something about this movie, I don't know what will. And maybe as a person in 2022, you watch this one, you're like, that's not that bad. I encourage you to really look into the lore because I think that's also very important when it comes to this movie. And yeah.
So Marin shows up, and he's like, "All right, let's do this quick because we're probably gonna have to do this like a bunch of different times because that's just how it is." Um, Reagan is like wiling out upstairs. She eventually, so they start doing the not the chants, but like the
Not the Macarena?
right. Um, so they start reading from the Bible, or at least Marin does, and Damien is supposed to like repeat a bunch of this stuff. But Reagan eventually like unstraps herself, which is kind of like what the book says, and starts to attack both of them in some kind of way, especially like throwing debris everywhere and stuff like that, and really takes a toll on both of them because they're both like stressed out and they're like still repeating themselves and trying to exercise the demon out of the body. Holy water is being splashed on her the entire time, and it's kind of like as to like sort of like subdue her in a way.
I do want to add that I feel like the priest Kara's, Damien, whatever, I don't think he was believing that she was possessed until this very exorcism. It wasn't until this exorcism that he was like, holy shit.
Well, when she starts to like levitate in the middle of the room.
Yes, it wasn't until the bed actually started to rise that he was like, oh fuck.
Well, and she does too by herself, not even within,
that like, was towards the end, yes.
Yeah.
Where her actual body lifts up from the bed. But I feel like the first time that I actually see him like, oh fuck, this is real, is when the bed started lifting. I mean, how is that even real? Like, how do you even science your way out of that?
Yeah, there's no way that you like can't believe anything like that afterwards,
Absolutely.
I would have been like, oh shit, nothing. It doesn't seem like it's working at all for a while. Well, it doesn't really work like at all. She does calm down for a minute, but then starts to wild it out again, and we see like.
Well, we see. Oh, sorry.
No, you go.
She was just she says like the foulest things ever, like come fuck me and like fuck you cocks, like all these super terrible things to say, especially during that time. But even now hearing it, I was like, holy fuck,
it was cringy.
That is so messed up. But
why don't you fuck her in the ass? I was like, oh whoa.
Yeah, I'm like, what's going on, guys? But even going back, there was this famous scene, really, where she gets a crucifix and she starts stabbing. I don't know if it's her vagina or her inner thigh.
Yeah, she's like it's like her thigh area. She's like
that scene.
Yeah, that was pretty.
That fucked me up. And
he almost kills the mom too. Like
yes,
she gets really close to.
Yes. I even watching this in 2022, I'm like, holy crap, like that is so messed up to
This
see
movie
that.
progresses pretty quick.
I know, and I feel like it's we're talking about it now, but like the last 30 minutes of the film, like the third act, if you will,
Yeah.
it is so fucked up. Like all this shit goes down with her acting insane and you
Mm-hmm.
see her body. And also, this reminds me too, I was in elementary school back in the day, okay? Um,
Yeah.
where I used to go on this website called SFogs, and there was a scene. You would click on a video link. This is like old internet,
Yeah.
and it was like a car commercial. And you're like, oh, you think it's like a nice little car commercial, and then all of a sudden the freaking Exorcist comes out.
Yeah.
Oh my god, that shit fucked me up.
Well, and it's cool because like you see like her you see like her face like get more like
Messed up.
messed up over time. Like every scene it gets
Scars.
worse. Yeah.
Her eyes, the way that her eyes look, the way
That
her
was dope.
voice, everything.
I was like, I'm
But,
pretty sure that's not just mental health.
ah,
At that point, yeah. I was like, oh
yeah,
no.
yeah, yeah. Uh, it was just, I mean,
Yeah.
whoever did the makeup on
It was
Reagan,
awesome.
they did an amazing job because
Yeah.
that even today, I'm like that shit looks real to me. Like
It just was done so good. Like
it creeps me the fuck out.
yeah, so she starts wilding out, and then Damien even like goes downstairs, and he's like, "Oh shit!" Like, you know, he's like winded, because like all this is happening, and Marin's still upstairs with Reagan, and
Well,
then
there's also this other scene where the father, the older father, he goes into the restroom and he's having like a whole mental breakdown. Like he's having the wind
yeah,
back
and
in,
well, he has to take the pill too, like whatever like is wrong
whatever
with
he was
him.
on.
Yeah,
Yeah, he was just you could tell like this guy's like dying. I mean, he's
well,
already
because
old.
he's already like older and like
I
he could
feel like
barely
he
even.
like. By the way, little interesting tidbit: the actor who played this role was actually in his 40s, but they aged him up like 20 more years to be in his 60s. And I just want to say they did a
He looked
great
way
job.
older than that. He looked like he was probably like in '70s, '80s.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah,
whoever did the makeup on that, I'm like,
kudos to him too. Yeah.
exactly, you did a
Or
great
whoever
job.
did it, he or
They did
she,
it.
whatever. Yeah, I
They
don't
did an
know. I didn't
amazing
know,
job.
but
uh,
like still, yeah, awesome. I thought he was actually like really old.
I thought so too. It wasn't until I did research for this movie that I was like, oh, I didn't know that the guy was actually not that old. It was just some dude in his 40s playing a guy in his 60s, 70s, or whatever.
Yeah,
I thought it was actually some guy in his 70s playing himself, being old and
yeah,
suffering because
me too.
they did an amazing job. And as a kid, I wouldn't know that because, again, like I said, I saw this movie when I was way too young and I believed every fucking thing. And I still think this movie holds up. Ultimately,
Oh
it holds
yeah,
up.
see, like, I have my doubts because like I said, I thought I saw this movie all the way through, but I don't remember seeing it all the way through until now, and I'm like, oh, no wonder why this is a classic. Like yeah, there is some silly things in it that I was like laughing about, but like overall, like I could definitely see why people were terrified of this film. Of like when the grand finale of it all, I was like, oh shit, like it gets super real. And
I think especially if it plays into your sensibilities, if you're religious, even more so because, like I already mentioned, I was very religious when I watched this movie. So
I mean,
it
I grew up in the church, like at least like a big chunk of it. So like I can see why like people would freak out because the devil is like obviously
scary,
like yeah.
very scary.
So so the mom's like, "Is it over?" And he's like, "No, it's not over." So he goes back upstairs and he sees the priest Marin dead on the ground. He's like ice cold. Um, Another cool thing about the movie too was like the room was always like after a while the room was always cold, like freezing. So as soon as they walk in, it was just like, well, the window's always open, um, and no matter even when it's like freezing, she's like sweating, like of being like overheated. So that's why like it's always like freezing cold in there. Um, so like he walks back up, priest is dead. He looks like he's almost blue because he's like freezing. And then he's like tired of it. Like it doesn't work. The exorcism doesn't work. She's still wigging out, and he starts to like beat her up, kind of. And I thought that was like I was like, oh, like he kind of lost his faith overall. Like he did lose his faith. He was like, that shit ain't working. So like, fuck this. I'm gonna start smacking it around. So he's like basically beating the shit out of her for a minute, and then finally he's like, just just go into my body, like I'm, save the girl, like, or leave the girl, come into my body, because he just gives up. You can tell he's just over it. And we see that the Pazuzu actually does transfer itself into the priest, um, and that shocked me. I was like, oh, like maybe because like he's in such a weak state of mind that like it was so easy for Pazuzu to just like take over.
Um,
I think that's kind of the point of it
I
was
yes, but
because
I
like
also
also losing faith too.
yes, but I also think that the lore behind demons going inside a body is sometimes that you can ask them. Like if you ask them, I feel like the father was actually pleading. He was like, "Come into me instead. Like take me over." Like he was basically giving the demon an in, and the
Yeah.
demon's like, "Oh, all right. You're saying come in. I sure will. I do declare. I'll go inside." And he sure did. So there's kind of like what you're saying as well, and then I think
Yeah,
also.
but I think that's because he just gave up though. Like he gave up in everything.
Mhm.
He's like this obviously isn't working. Like my belief is shattered now. I just want to save the girl, but I don't give a shit what happens to me really. And like this is the only thing that I can see isn't gonna work. Is like the demon leaving the girl's body to enter mine because like I don't see any other resort to save this girl's life. Like this is the only way that he sees at the time that it's gonna work. So in his right mind at the time, he actually jumps out the window and kills himself. Um, which I was very I was shocked as well because like I said, if I had watched this movie when I was younger, I don't remember it. But when I saw that, I was like,
I
oh
don't remember
shit,
that part either.
yeah. So like he kills himself or he jumps out the window. He like it's like
It's like so many people before him had also died, by the way. Those famous stairs where a lot of people were found, a lot of priests, doctors, whatever, were found underneath the stairs, contorted in such a way that it almost seemed impossible that they were pushed off. And they weren't, really. It was the demon. But in this case, like you said, Damien did jump out.
yeah, he did it on his own free will and not just being murdered by this child. um,
I don't know
as
if it's free will, though. That's, I don't know.
I I think it was. I think that was
You think
he.
he was like a sacrifice?
Yeah, he sacrificed
Oh,
himself because he
yeah.
knew that
To
he was
save
going to end up
Reagan?
well to save Reagan and to also he
Mhm.
didn't want to end up like Reagan because it was just going to happen. Like
You're right.
the demon's going to win no matter what. So
Mhm.
he
I could
was
see
like,
that.
yeah. So he was like, fuck it, like I'm not going to end up like this girl, but I'm also I want this demon to not win. Well, I mean, in a sense, the demon won because he killed 3 people in the film, or it killed 3 people in the film. I can't assume gender people. So, but
Reagan did survive.
well, yeah, but so Pazuzu kills both priests and also the drunk guy. So 3 people were dead, at least in the house. So,
Mhm.
um, I mean, he almost killed Reagan because he stabbed. He made Reagan stab herself a bunch of times, and I'm surprised like she wasn't like seriously injured from that because there's a lot of like there's your arteries and shit like close, upper thigh.
Mhm.
So I was like, huh, okay. They kind of like brush that off, but um, yeah. So
Resilient, especially when you're that young. I mean, there's crazier stuff that's happened. So I guess
true.
her
Your body's pretty
surviving,
resilient. Yeah.
yeah. Uh,
So like after he jumps out the window, he's like all banged up. He's dying. His brother priest comes up and it's like he's I don't know if that's a thing that they do like when a priest dies, but he's like, what is your greatest like regret or whatever? I don't know. He says something weird. And he's like trying to get him to say something before he's like actually dead. Um, and then so the priest demon dies, and
honestly, like you said, when I watched this movie so long, like such a long time ago, I don't even remember that he died. I could have sworn he survived, but obviously I was wrong.
yeah, I don't remember any of this stuff. So I'm pretty sure I don't. I must have watched like half of it and just like not finished it. um,
I was too young.
see, yeah, I love horror films, so I watched so many that it's like I just forget.
I know, honestly, and like that's a funny thing about being like a horror lover or in general. People are like, "Oh, have you seen this movie?" And you're like, "Yeah, I have." And they're like, "Oh, do you remember such and so scene?" And I'm like, vaguely,
No.
maybe, probably no, because
Yeah.
so long that still doesn't dismiss the fact that I love the movie. And maybe you watched it recently, and that's why it's so fresh in your memory. But I don't. I'm sorry. So, but this
Um,
that's why this podcast is so fun because like I get to rewatch some of the classics and it just makes it more fun. Like I remember what I was feeling at that time, or it just refreshes your memory. Like
yeah.
holy fuck, yeah,
So I love how this movie wraps up. I love that I mean, I don't love that the priests are dead, but for me as a writer myself, that's exactly how I would want the
it
movie
was
to end.
beautiful. I agree. It was a
Yeah.
really really good ending, and I was actually surprised. I was like, that's very like poetic to end it that.
Poetic and dark, and because it's like the demons still won.
Mhm, mhm.
And it's gonna live on because like demons don't really die. They just gets if they do die, it's like I don't even think historically demons probably don't even die. They probably just get sent back to hell or whatever.
Exactly. But we
So
get
he
this
wins.
scene, yeah, but we get the scene of the last father that we were talking about, and he's overlooking the stairs where the previous fathers had tragically died, and that's basically where the film ends. But I just think that's beautiful. Like you get a father contemplating everything basically that's happened before, and he probably
Well,
doesn't,
and the brother priest who he talks to Reagan afterwards, and he
and she doesn't remember anything.
yeah, and then also
That
like
was crazy to me. I was like,
the
holy
mom gives
fuck.
back the medallion that priest
Yes.
Damien has, so like he gives it to the friend, and he kind of like remorses after that.
I don't
Um,
think it's the one that Damien had. I think it's the one that the older father had, by the way. I think.
oh yeah, he found it in Iraq. Yeah, that's
Mhm,
what it was. Okay,
mhm. Just so anybody is gonna call us out, we know,
yeah.
okay? Yeah, no, I thought that was cool too. And like the mother, they ended up moving away from that home. Like I totally get it. And I mean, if you want to read into some deeper implications, you could say like there was a lot of trauma that happened in that home that they don't want to be part of it. They don't want to remember the things, the fucked up things that went on. I also heard this theory that a lot, not a lot, this is actually a very unpopular opinion, but that this movie dealt with sexual abuse, and that's why like the demon spirit in Reagan was so adamant about like stabbing herself like through the thigh and saying a lot of like vulgar things about sexuality. um yeah, that's just a different angle that I didn't really explore, but I did hear about it. I just wanted to bring it up if anybody want to give it some, I don't know, I just thought that was interesting. Did
Well, I feel like there's a lot of undertones to this film. I mean, not only like religion, but like yeah, those sexual themes. Like there's like parts a lot of mental health stuff that they mention.
Definitely the mental health is what stuck out to
Yeah,
me the most, like for me personally. But I just thought it was interesting that somebody said like sexual abuse. I didn't really think about like that much, but I could see the angle that people could take, especially with what I said previously.
yeah.
I also just quickly wanted to shout out Curse Films. It's on Shutter, and it discussed the curse surrounding The Exorcist. Real people died during the making of The Exorcist, and for many years, the film was said to be dangerous even to the viewers. And some people are like speculating, like, was this marketing hype? Was it something else? Was it like I don't know? And then rumors surrounded it about disturbing things that had happened on set during the filming. There were reports of audiences, like I already mentioned this, getting sick, fainting when they went to see it, on-set accidents, a mysterious fire, and even murder all took place while the film was being made. Um, Curse Films on Shutter again
Hmm.
goes into detail about the troubling things surrounding The Exorcist on the set. There were several injuries, including long-term back injuries for both Linda Blair, who played the possessed girl Reagan, and
Wow.
Ellen Burstyn, who played Reagan's mother. There was also a fire that burned down most of the set except for Reagan's bedroom. That's interesting. Which filmmakers thought was very strange. And on top of that, a man who played a nurse in the film killed the reporter before The Exorcist was even released, and he
Wow.
was quick to confess the crime, but couldn't provide police a motive for why he did it. This is all, by the way, I want to give credit to where credit's due, on Screen Rant, and it's a little documentary that Chris Films puts out on Shutter. I thought that whole thing was interesting. So just to yeah, a lot of this stuff was just cursed, quite simply.
Yeah, I feel like there was a bunch of films that were like supposedly cursed in like the 70s and 80s.
I think that's interesting. Why just the 70s and 80s? I wonder if there's anything going on after that time, maybe the 2000s.
But I also think like it was also like because like technology was like kind of like limited in those like eras where like so like malfunctions were happening. I mean maybe not so much like the murders that you mentioned, but like
Yeah,
there was like people dying in like helicopter accidents and like electrocutions and like just like stuff just because like there wasn't as much safety back in the day too.
to chalk it up to there being more practical effects and therefore more
Yeah.
chances of people getting hurt. I understand that. Yeah.
So I mean,
I don't
who
know.
knows? Who knows?
Who knows? And part of me just wants to believe that shit's weird.
The lore behind it makes you want to believe. Yeah. So.
Exactly.
So here's like one thing I want to mention that I was kind of like weirded out about the film was well, one of them was like the how they kind of like made the Iraqi people look. But the other thing was like I had a real issue, at least with the first like quarter of the film. Um, the editing was like I felt it was kind of sloppy. Like I was like if like the way they transitioned scenes, I was like kind of confused me a couple times because I was like that was like an odd way to like end the scene, and like to start at a different location or whatever. Like
I
this,
did I did notice some jump cuts and I was like, this is not flowing seamlessly. Like,
yeah,
yeah.
I was like, I don't know how I feel about this, but then it gets better. Like you don't notice it. Maybe it's like you just get used to the style of the film,
Mhm.
but like it got better later on. But like the first like I don't know 20 minutes or so, like I was like, what the fuck? Like this is so
Honestly,
weird. Yeah,
I feel like I could have done without like the first 20 minutes of the movie. I know it's like weird to say, but I feel like I know why they added, but I feel like it didn't have to be that long. But then I feel like a lot of people could argue like, oh, a lot of movies like rush through like the background and just get right into the movie and don't give us enough like background on what's going on. So I don't know. I could see both sides, but for me personally, yeah, I don't know. It was a little too long for me. I feel like it could have been shortened.
yeah. I
Just
think that's
saying.
like my only like squabble with the film itself, but overall, I mean, this movie's obviously going to always be a classic.
Mhm.
Awesome film. I mean, especially the last half of it, you were like,
The
it
last
really keeps you like, it really sucks you into the universe. You're just like, oh, what is she gonna do? Because like, that shit's gonna get down, but like, you're like, oh, how bad is it gonna get? And it gets really bad.
Mhm.
So,
The fact that
uh,
a mom is not believed that something could be possibly wrong with her daughter. I feel like the medical system itself, a lot of times they don't believe you, like there's something wrong with you. They're like, oh, it's just this, it's just that. It's like, no, I'm pleading with you, there's something actually wrong with me. Although in this case, obviously there was something more demonic going on. But I think that's kind of interesting. Like, I mean, I'm sure that the film didn't intend for this, but the fact that sometimes you plead with the medical people, like please like look beyond this, like there's something actually wrong with me, and they're very dismissive most of the time. They're like, there's
yep.
something, it's just because of this, it's just because of that.
Well, they ran the test on her twice, right? The MRI thing. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, that's torture, dude. Like,
Yeah.
fuck. And then found nothing. Like, ugh,
Mm-hmm.
gross.
Yeah, but I
Anyway,
think this movie overall, I think it was a great movie. I rated it an A, a solid A.
yeah, me too. Easily.
It's pretty high. I think it's a classic for a reason, and it's going to be iconic for years to come. And I can't
It's
wait
funny
for.
because I didn't even think I was gonna like rate it this high until like I saw it. And I was like, oh man, this is dope. Like,
No, I honestly I feel the same. I'm like, even the Nightmare on Elm Street. Like I think of it and like I think that's a really good like movie, and I think it's cheesy and funny. When I see this one, I'm like, oh, this is like kind of more serious. Like
yeah.
I really get it. I
Besides like her like cursing at like people, I was like, the rest of it, I was like, oh, this is real.
mhm.
Like
I
this is
think
like documented shit that happened, in the past. That
yeah,
at least like scenarios.
such a good job. They
Yeah.
really did, and that's why we have so many copies of it or so many wannabes,
Yep.
inspired by this film. So I really do. I give it an A.
Hell yeah, me too. Same page. All right, well, that's it for this week, guys. Thank you again for listening. We had I had a blast doing this movie.
Loved it.
So fun. I love it. I love everything, most stuff about the film. Yeah. So I don't know what we're gonna do next week, like usual, but we'll get you
I
guys
do
something
know.
good.
I'll give you guys a teaser. It's either Between the Ring or It Follows, so stay tuned.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm down for either one.
Mm-hmm.
So again, you guys can follow me on Instagram at Kelly_DTO or TikTok KellyDTO408. That's where you can find me the most.
And for me, just TikTok, please. If you want to follow, Jessmel, JESSMEL6. For some reason, yes, follow me. I make some Mexican food. I talk about horror. That's about it.
And for the YouTube channel, guys, go ahead and feel free to comment, suggestions.
Subscribe.
Yeah, subscribe. Please subscribe. Tell your friends and family. Yeah, tell your friends.
Yeah, people
family,
you hate. That'd be
people
even
you hate.
better.
Yeah, hate on us. That's fine.
Hate on
Whatever.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't care. I mean,
Any
I
interaction
do
is
care.
good interaction.
Yeah, I do care, but I'll suck it up. Yeah. Anyway, we'll see you guys next week. Thank you guys for listening.
Bye.